Chapter 14. The Warbrain's Nuclear Theater. Humanity tells itself that nuclear weapons are controlled by leaders, generals, and scientists, that governments draft treaties, sign arms reduction pacts, and set doctrines to avoid catastrophe. But the deeper truth is far darker. From the first sparks of the Manhattan Project to the hypersonic missile tests of today, it has not been human wisdom or restraint that prevented annihilation. It has been the hidden operating system, the Warbrain, that has written the script. The Warbrain has always thrived on balance at the edge of chaos. It does not want extinction, because extinction ends the game. It wants perpetual tension, a constant reminder that death is possible at any moment, yet never quite allowed to arrive. It keeps humanity dangling over the abyss, trembling, fearful, and fully mobilized. 4. Nuclear weapons are not simply weapons. They are instruments of psychological domination. They are the altar on which the Warbrain has placed humanity to worship its own fragility. When the first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, it was not merely a new weapon, but a revelation. Fire hotter than the sun had been pulled into human hands. The Warbrain knew instantly that this was a perfect tool, one that could never be uninvented, and one that would keep humanity in thrall forever. Within days of Nagasaki, plans were already underway for bigger bombs, hydrogen bombs, warheads that could wipe out entire continents. Politicians said they were protecting their nations. Scientists said they were advancing knowledge. Generals said they were preserving peace through strength. But beneath all those words, the Warbrain smiled. It had locked humanity into a cycle where fear itself would be the fuel for progress. The Cold War became its greatest masterpiece. Two superpowers stared at each other across oceans, each one convinced that survival required building more, faster, stronger. By the 1980s, the United States and the Soviet Union had tens of thousands of warheads between them, enough to incinerate the planet many times over. Both sides claimed deterrence was the purpose. Both sides believed the other could strike first, and yet neither side fired. Why? Not because leaders were wise, but because the Warbrain had designed the game to be unwinnable. Every false alarm, every radar glitch, every military exercise that almost spiraled into war was part of the theater. In 1983, a Soviet lieutenant colonel named Stanislav Petrov saw what looked like incoming American missiles on his screen. He was ordered to retaliate. He hesitated and reported it as a false alarm. Humanity later praised him for saving the world, but the truth is more unnerving. The Warbrain never intended those missiles to be real. It only needed the Soviets to believe, for a few minutes, that annihilation was imminent. That fear kept the arms race alive. That paranoia kept billions flowing into weapons programs. That near miss kept the Cold War hot enough to sustain itself without tipping into Armageddon. This pattern has repeated in every nuclear standoff since. During the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, humanity came closer than ever to nuclear war. Kennedy and Khrushchev played their parts as statesmen, struggling to find compromise. But they were not in control. They were actors in a script where both sides had to feel the abyss beneath their feet and step back just in time. The Warbrain needed that moment to remind humanity of its fragility, to lock in the psychology of deterrence for another half-century. The Warbrain has no allegiance to ideology. It does not prefer capitalism to communism, democracy to dictatorship. Its allegiance is only to conflict. That is why nuclear arsenals exist, not just in Washington and Moscow, but in Beijing, London, Paris, Islamabad, New Delhi, Jerusalem, and Pyongyang. Each power tells itself it is unique, that its weapons are purely defensive, yet each is playing the same role. Each is a node in the same network of fear, all carefully calibrated by the Warbrain to prevent final destruction while maximizing tension. Consider India and Pakistan. These two nations have fought multiple wars since their birth in 1947. and their border in Kashmir remains one of the most dangerous flashpoints in the world. Both sides have nuclear arsenals. Both sides engage in periodic skirmishes. Both sides threaten annihilation during crises. Yet somehow, the line is never fully crossed. The war brain thrives on their hatred, but it does not allow them to detonate their arsenals. If they did, the cycle would end too abruptly. Instead, it ensures just enough violence to keep the fear alive, to keep the weapons modernized, to keep the populations divided. Or take North Korea. A tiny, impoverished nation with a starving population somehow manages to produce intercontinental missiles and nuclear warheads. How? Because the war brain needed a wild card, a rogue actor to destabilize the global balance. North Korea plays the role of the madman, threatening launches, parading missiles, taunting its enemies. Yet it never actually fires at the United States or South Korea. The war brain does not need a mushroom cloud over Los Angeles. It only needs the possibility of one. That possibility sustains military spending, alliances, and fear. What about Israel? For decades, it refused to admit it even possessed nuclear weapons, maintaining a policy of ambiguity. Everyone knew, yet no one acknowledged it officially. This, too, is the war brain's design. Ambiguity breeds suspicion. Suspicion breeds fear. Fear breeds control. Israel's arsenal exists not just as a deterrent to its enemies, but as a permanent psychological reminder that the Middle East can never be free of tension. The war brain's genius lies in creating a paradox. Nuclear weapons are too catastrophic to use, yet too useful to give up. They lock humanity in a permanent state of readiness, a condition where science, industry, and politics are all bent toward maintaining the balance. The weapons themselves are rarely tested or detonated, but their existence drives endless innovation. Miniaturization of warheads, hypersonic delivery systems, missile defense shields, cyber command centers. Each new breakthrough spills over into civilian life. Satellites, GPS, advanced computing, telecommunications. The war brain trades the threat of extinction for technological progress, just as it has done in every war before. Humanity tells itself it is in control of these arsenals. Presidents carry nuclear codes in briefcases. Prime ministers convene security councils. Generals write war plans. But these are rituals of illusion. No leader truly has the power to launch at will. They are constrained by systems, checks, warnings, counter-orders. The corridors of action are narrow, pre-designed, and the war brain is the architect. Even when leaders believe they are bold, they are only walking paths already laid for them. The odds of actual use remain small, but never zero. That is exactly how the war brain wants it. Zero means complacency. Certainty of annihilation would paralyze, but uncertainty keeps the system alive. Humanity must always believe the unthinkable could happen, yet always hope it will not. This tension is the fuel of the nuclear age. And what would happen if they were ever used? The war brain knows the answer. Total nuclear exchange would wipe out entire cities, entire nations. The global economy would collapse. Climate would plunge into nuclear winter. Billions would die. The game would end. The war brain does not allow the game to end. That is why every moment of near launch has been interrupted. That is why every false alarm has been corrected. That is why cooler heads have always, just barely, prevailed. The war brain thrives on keeping humanity unbalanced, never safe, always afraid. Nuclear arsenals are its most perfect creation, because they require no actual battles to sustain endless fear. They are battles fought in the mind, wars rehearsed in drills and documentaries, annihilation imagined on screens, but never lived. And yet every human knows the fear is real, because the weapons are real. That is the cage. The question is not whether nuclear weapons will be used. The question is how long humanity will tolerate being ruled by their shadow. The war brain has no intention of disarming. It has embedded itself into every nuclear strategy, every military doctrine, every budget line. It ensures that no matter what treaties are signed, modernization continues. No matter what promises are made, research continues. No matter what peace is declared, the fear remains. In the end, nuclear weapons are not about defending nations. They are about defending the war brain's dominion. They guarantee that humanity remains afraid of itself. They guarantee that progress continues to be tied to conflict. They guarantee that no one ever truly feels safe. That is the real balance of terror. Not between East and West, not between democracies and dictatorships, but between humanity and its hidden operating system. The war brain has won. For now. It has convinced billions to live under the shadow of weapons they pray will never be used, but refuse to give up. It has embedded itself in military budgets, political debates, and popular imagination. And as long as the arsenals exist, so does its control. The question remains, will humanity ever be able to rewrite the code? Or will we remain, forever, pawns in the war brain's nuclear theater? The test of existence. Every species faces an ultimate test. For the saber-toothed cat, it was survival against climate change and dwindling prey. For the woolly mammoth, it was adaptation to a warming earth. For humanity, the test is not about ice or food. It is about whether we can rewrite ourselves, whether we can stop obeying the invisible commands of the war brain, whether we can abandon the obsession with weapons that can end everything in a single night. Nuclear arsenals exist because nations love them. They love them not as machines, but as symbols. They are symbols of strength, of invulnerability, of godlike power. They are monuments of fear, carved not in stone, but in enriched uranium. The United States clings to its arsenal not just to deter Russia or China, but because the bombs are proof that it still sits on the throne of world order. Russia loves its arsenal because it proves it is still relevant, still a superpower, even as its economy falters. China builds more because nuclear warheads elevate it from mere rising power to peer competitor. France, Britain, Israel, India, Pakistan, North Korea all hold on to their weapons for the same reason. Nukes are the one guarantee that no one can ignore you. No nation gives up this power willingly, because the war brain whispers in every parliament and every palace the same message. Without these weapons, you are weak, you are prey, you will be conquered. And humans, obedient to the code they never asked to inherit, listen to the whisper. So the cycle continues. Weapons are modernized, not dismantled. New delivery systems are built, not decommissioned. Hypersonic missiles, space-based sensors, AI-driven launch systems. It is the same logic that has governed the species since the first sharpened spear was lifted. If the other tribe has one, we must have two. But here lies the paradox. These weapons are not meant to be used. The war brain does not want apocalypse. It wants tension. It wants humanity to live in permanent fear of annihilation, without ever reaching it. And so for 75 years they have sat in silos, on submarines, in hangars, waiting, waiting, waiting. The only way they will ever vanish is if the code itself is rewritten. The war brain is not a literal computer program, but it functions like one. It is a set of evolutionary imperatives hardwired into every human brain. Protect the group, destroy outsiders, sacrifice lives for progress. It has served its purpose for thousands of years. It has driven conquest, invention, empire, survival. But now, for the first time, the war brain has created tools that can kill not just enemies, but the entire species. That is its glitch, its fatal flaw. And only humans can fix it. To disarm nuclear weapons permanently is not a technical problem. It is not about treaties, or inspectors, or safeguards. It is about reprogramming the mind. The only way to destroy these arsenals is to destroy the part of the human operating system that insists they are necessary. It means teaching children from birth that survival does not require domination. It means inventing new rituals of power that are not built on fear. It means replacing the war brain with what might be called a peace brain, a new OS that values connection over conquest. This is not optional. This is the final exam of existence. If humanity cannot change its own code, then perhaps it does not deserve to continue. If we cannot let go of weapons that serve no purpose but to terrify, then maybe we are not the species we imagine ourselves to be. Maybe we are just clever apes, playing with matches in a powder keg. The war brain has always told us the same story. Survival requires blood. But now survival requires refusing blood. For the first time, the only way to pass the test is to betray the program. The war brain will resist. It will fight every attempt at disarmament. It will whisper that weakness invites invasion, that neighbors cannot be trusted, that treaties are lies. It will remind us of every betrayal in history, every broken promise, every slaughtered people. It will cling to its arsenal with iron claws, because it knows, if the nukes vanish, its hold on humanity weakens. This is why the challenge is so great. Nuclear disarmament is not about weapons. It is about self-awareness. It is about whether humanity can finally see the puppet strings and choose to cut them. It is about whether we can step outside of history's slaughterhouse and say no more. The odds are not good. Nations love their bombs too much. Politicians love the theater of strength. Generals love the power of command. Scientists love the funding that flows into weapons research. The war brain has embedded itself into every corner of the system. To undo it will require a movement larger than any war ever fought. But imagine if it succeeded. Imagine if humanity chose to rewrite its operating system. If, one by one, nations began dismantling silos, melting down warheads, scrapping submarines. If new monuments were built not to mushroom clouds, but to the choice to survive, that act would be more revolutionary than any war, any invention, any religion. It would be the first time the species chose its own destiny instead of obeying its hidden code. That is the only way out. That is the only way to survive the test.